Imagine you walk into a restaurant alone, glance at the menu, and order something modest, maybe a salad and water. Now replay that exact same moment, but this time you are sitting with four colleagues who all order steaks, appetizers, and a round of drinks. Studies consistently show you will spend significantly more in the second scenario, not because you are hungrier, not because you suddenly earn more, but simply because other people are watching. This is social proof spending, and it is one of the most expensive invisible forces in your financial life. Social proof is a term coined by psychologist Robert Cialdini in his landmark 1984 book, Influence. The core idea is that humans are wired to look at what other people are doing and treat it as a signal of what is correct. In evolutionary terms, this made perfect sense. If everyone in your tribe was running away from the forest, you did not stop to investigate why. You ran. That instinct kept our ancestors alive, but in a modern consumer economy loaded with restaurants, car dealerships, social media feeds, and online shopping carts, it quietly drains your bank account every single week. The troubling part is that social proof spending is not limited to obvious peer pressure situations like picking up a round of drinks. It operates in your online shopping cart, in your neighborhood, in your social media feed, and even in how you think about your own net worth. Over the next few minutes, we are going to peel back every layer of this phenomenon because once you see exactly how it works, it becomes almost impossible to fall for it the same way again. Let us go deeper into that restaurant scenario because researchers have actually studied it under controlled conditions and the numbers are striking. A study published in the journal Appetite found that people eating in groups consistently consumed more food and spent more money than people eating alone, even when controlling for hunger levels. On average, dining with one other person increased consumption by about 35%. Add a third person, and that figure jumps to roughly 75%. Eat with a group of seven or more, and people consume nearly twice as much as they would alone. Researchers call this social facilitation of eating, and the mechanism behind it is a combination of distraction, extended meal duration, and the unconscious mirroring of others. When someone orders dessert, you suddenly feel permission to do the same. When someone suggests a second bottle of wine, declining feels like a social statement rather than a financial one. The cost of this single dynamic playing out across birthdays, work lunches, team dinners, and family gatherings adds up fast. If you eat out with groups just twice a month and overspend by only $30 each time due to social facilitation, that is $720 a year. Over a decade, adjusted for modest inflation, that is well over $8,000 spent entirely because of who was sitting at the table with you. The fix is not to stop eating with people you enjoy. It is to order first before others at the table set an anchor in your mind, because research also shows that when you order before the group, you are significantly more likely to choose what you actually wanted rather than what the group gravitates toward. The social proof effect does not stop at the restaurant door. It follows you home, literally. Economists Enricheta Ravina and Sumit Agarwal published research using credit card data from thousands of households and found something remarkable. When a neighbor receives a windfall, like an inheritance or a bonus, and starts spending more visibly on things like home renovations or new cars, the spending of nearby neighbors measurably increases within months, even though those neighbors received no new income themselves. This is sometimes called expenditure contagion or the keeping up with the Joneses effect backed by hard data rather than just folklore, and it operates below the level of conscious thought. You do not wake up one morning and decide your neighbor's new car means you need one too. Instead, your reference point for what is normal subtly shifts. The new car on the street becomes part of your visual landscape. Your current car, perfectly functional last month, now starts to feel inadequate. Thorstein Veblen described this mechanism as far back as 1899 in his book The Theory of the Leisure Class, where he introduced the concept of conspicuous consumption, spending not for utility but for social signaling. What modern behavioral economists have added is the data showing how contagious that signaling actually is. The average American household living in a neighborhood with above average visible consumption spends an estimated 3 to 5% more per year than a household with identical income living in a neighborhood with more modest visible spending. On a $50,000 annual budget, that is $1,500 to $2,500 per year going to social comparison rather than genuine preference. The neighborhood you live in is not just a place, it is a constant spending signal. If neighborhoods create a passive spending signal, social media creates an active one running 24 hours a day. The mechanism is identical to the restaurant and the neighborhood, but the scale and intensity are unlike anything humans have faced before in history. Before social media, your comparison pool was largely limited to people you physically encountered: co-workers, neighbors, family members, a few hundred people at most. Today, the average person is exposed to thousands of curated highlight reels every single day, each one algorithmically selected to be maximally engaging, which in practice means maximally aspirational. Researcher Keith Hampton of Rutgers University found that heavy social media users are more likely to report financial stress and more likely to make impulsive purchases driven by comparison than light users, even after controlling for income. The pathway is direct. You see a travel post, a new outfit, a kitchen renovation, or a luxury product, and your social proof instinct fires immediately. Other people are doing this. Is it normal? Should I? A 2023 survey by Credit Karma found that 38% of millennials admitted to going into debt specifically to keep up with spending they had seen from friends on social media. That is not a fringe behavior. That is more than 1 in 3 people in an entire generation financing a lifestyle built on someone else's curated highlight reel. The practical defense here is surprisingly powerful. Research from the University of Pennsylvania showed that limiting social media use to 30 minutes per day led to significant reductions in both social comparison and impulsive discretionary spending within just 3 weeks. The algorithm is not your financial advisor. Every scroll is a potential spending trigger wearing the disguise of entertainment. So now you know the mechanism. Social proof spending works because your brain is running ancient tribal software in a modern consumer environment. It fires in restaurants, on your street, and on your screen, and it costs the average person thousands of dollars a year in spending that was never really about what they wanted. The good news is that awareness alone dramatically reduces the effect. Behavioral economists call this the spotlight of attention. Once you consciously recognize the trigger, the automatic response weakens. Here are 3 research-backed moves you can start using immediately. First, name the trigger out loud in your head. When you feel spending pressure from a social situation, simply saying to yourself, "I am experiencing social proof right now," interrupts the automatic pathway and returns decision-making to your rational brain. Second, build a 24-hour buffer for any non-essential purchase you feel prompted to make by a social situation. Most socially triggered spending impulses fade significantly within a day when removed from the context that created them. Third, audit your reference groups deliberately. Research by Thomas Stanley, co-author of The Millionaire Next Door, found that people who build significant wealth typically live in neighborhoods and social circles where visible consumption is lower than their income would suggest, not because they are frugal by nature, but because lower comparison environments simply produce less spending pressure. You do not have to move or change your friends, but being intentional about the comparison signals you expose yourself to is one of the highest leverage financial habits you can build. Your spending is a reflection of your environment as much as your intentions. Change the environment even slightly and you change the outcome. If this video opened your eyes to something you had never quite noticed before, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss the next one.